Wairu Kinyori-Gugu is our guest. She is the secretary of the Kileleshwa Ward Neighbourhood Association. It's called KIWANA. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you so much.
That's the hot seat of the situation room. Happy
to be here. Happy to be here. Very comfortable. Thank you.
Very good. You'll tell us all about KIWANA and why the Kileleshwa Ward people are coming together. An entire ward neighborhood association. Kileleshwa is big.
Yes.
And when you call it a neighborhood, now you're like, okay, right.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
So Kileleshwa Ward Neighborhood Association, what you're planning to do and why you are coming together. But as you do that, I'm going to give you today's proverb on behalf of CT. Mm-hmm. CT's proverbs this week are from the country of Lesotho. Mm-hmm. Today's proverb, cows lick each other because they know each other. Mm-hmm. Cows lick each other because they know each other. Now, as the secretary of KIWANA, how do you interpret this proverb?
So I think I would say that for you to lick, if you're a cow and you're licking another cow, there needs to be a familiarity. And so there is, and the reason you're licking it could be varied. Maybe you're protecting the other person from, maybe you're removing the other cow, a tick on the cow, the other cows, hide. So for you to lick another cow, you need to have familiarity. You need to know each other. You need to know where their pain points are. So I think, I think I'll definitely be using that proverb moving forward. It's a powerful proverb. Yeah.
Talks about just being familiar because you are close to one another. You spend time with one another. So you will be the ones who understand each other. And you sort each other out.
Yes. And you're there for each other.
Yes. See, that links very well with today's topic.
For sure. I see what you did there.
Right? Thanks to CT. Let me just tell you about smiling and the importance of smiling. Now that, as a neighborhood, you're coming together. And I imagine as a country coming together to make sure that those that don't have access to safe drinking water can actually get access to safe drinking water. That's what we do with our taxes, okay? So they go to the Ministry of Water, then the Ministry of Water comes up with these general programs, and then the counties make sure that people get water. But those that don't, can we do something? Yes, Colgate is saying, let's do it. As we are waiting for government to do, how about we do it? Walk into Naivas, purchase a tube of Colgate, and from that, you will basically be helping 30 communities get access to water. They're sinking 30 water wells in identified areas, benefiting at least 150,000 people. And all they're asking you to do is buy toothpaste.
Wow. Amazing.
Not donate the toothpaste. Buy toothpaste, use it. The money will do the water.
Amazing.
Good thing, isn't it?
Amazing. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So why a Kilimani Ward Neighborhood Association? We know of neighborhood associations in courts, right? Why an entire ward?
So for us, it was important to come together as a ward because we realized that. So first, we wanted to organize according to a village model. And this we were very passionate about because we felt that first, the strength in numbers, and Kileleshwa for a very long time was neglected. If you had come to Kileleshwa like 3-4 years ago, you'd find that we didn't have good roads. We were always talking about the roads in Kileleshwa. In fact, I used to get into cabs, and the Uber drivers would be like, "Ay, nyinyi watu wa Kileleshwa mnasema nyinyi ni masonko, but barabara zenyu ni mbaya kushinda za umoja." So that was always a narrative. So we decided to come together because there was many issues that were affecting the people of Kileleshwa, and as a ward in its entirety. And we felt that if we came together in a strategic way, with the critical numbers, then we would be able to influence some of the issues that affecting Kileleshwa, some of the service delivery issues affecting Kileleshwa. Roads, a big issue was environmental issues such as the river pollution. So Kirichwa River passes through Kileleshwa, and it's the boundary between Kileleshwa and Kilimani. So it was always interesting because at a certain point, and at a certain period in the year, that river would smell and it would just be awful. and people would never know where that smell is coming from. But we realized that it was coming from up the river, and up the river was our neighbors and really part of the ward, in the informal settlements in Kawangware, in Gatina, in Waruko, and it would come down that way because people would open their solid waste and their sewage into the river. So once we realized that, some of the issues that are facing Kileleshwa are not beyond Kileleshwa, that within Kileleshwa we have to come together as a community so that we can be able to mobilize around some of those issues. Another big issue was water. Service, like people were not getting enough sufficient water. Security was a big issue, as well as lighting, street lighting, and I think those were some of the big, and electricity, lighting of Kileleshwa. So as a ward, I think as a community we decided to come together, and it's interesting because I've talked about the village model. We are organized from the street level. So we decided you can't wait for kuomba serikali. We have to start at the street level. So as KIWANA, we organized. So streets come together, they organize, and then they get representatives. We go to a block level. A block is a couple of streets. Then we go to the sub-village, and then the village, and then now the ward. So
how many streets make up a village?
So
how many blocks make up a village? So
about right now we have around 4 blocks in Kileleshwa, and those 4 blocks are so I have to first explain Kileleshwa because most people think Kileleshwa is the area in and around
the Kasuku
Center and police station.
And the clock.
And the clock. So people think that's Kileleshwa, but Kileleshwa extends down. If you go Prime Bank, so we have Mudangari village and we have Kileleshwa village within the ward. So if you go down Prime Bank, because that's another big area that people know, you go down to the Wayakiwe. So Wayakiwe ICA on the left side, with your back towards town, that's Kileleshwa all the way to Kianda.
All right.
Yeah, so on the left. So I see.
So Riverside Drive,
Raptor,
going all
Sports
the way
Road.
up to Kianda School.
So you go
beyond ABC Place.
Yes, beyond ABC Place.
All
so
right.
Mudangari, that's the Mudangari area. So Kabaserian, you have Waruko. There is an informal settlement there called Waruko. So Waruko is part of Kileleshwa. And then you come down, and then there's the boundary there's a road called Olengroni. People say it's a roundabout for Lavington.
Yes.
So if you're on the left, on the left, yes, of Olengroni, that's Kileleshwa. But then you go up what is called Mugumo Drive. On the left is Kileleshwa. You go down Mudangari Road all the way to Getanga, and then you come back to Oloitoktok.
Some constituencies are not this big.
Yeah, they are.
And this is just a ward.
And that's a ward. So people don't imagine how big it is. So we've organized and we've ensured that there's around 5 blocks so that cover the different areas, and it's organized. So for instance, on Oloitoktok, one side of Oloitoktok is a block, and the other side of Oloitoktok is another block. And you go, Waruko is a block. You have your Mudangari block, your Mzima, your Riverside, your Raptor Sports, Lantana. So that's how we are organized in Kileleshwa. It's been fascinating journey because we started quite randomly because there was a community meeting which was held, and it was sponsored by a not-for-profit called TISA. And TISA was organizing residents. So they held a meeting in Kileleshwa, and from there people came. Actually, a lot of people came, and that's why I first went to that meeting. And people after the meeting, they started like, no, we need to organize and we need to form a residents association. It was 2 years of literally meeting 5-6 people.
Yeah.
And this is 6 years later.
So one of the things you said I thought was interesting is that you said, so there were many things that were broken. There was no water. I remember I used to live there. So you turn on the tap, sometimes there's no water. The sound of water bowsers in Kileleshwa was the regular thing, right? Talk about the smell coming. But then you said we decided to come together. But then my question is, to do what? To rally the local leadership, to say let's do these things for ourselves when it's actually a right that should be provided, that it should be provided by government. So come together to do what exactly?
So for us, the key actually mandate of KIWANA is to work with government, and I say work with government towards delivering services for its citizens.
Okay.
And we realize that there's the services that the government can provide, but there's also ways in which the government can work with its residents to be able to have those services delivered at the local level. So, for instance, one of the big one was roads. We can't build our own roads. We have to. The government has to build our own roads. And one of the big issues was that because Kileleshwa is largely a middle class area, there was a narrative that, middle class apathy. So how do you get people to rally around some of these issues and not be, what are they called, Twitter activists and all that?
Yes.
So we found that first we need to just mobilize the numbers. And one very active way in which we did that was just start a WhatsApp group. And the WhatsApp group has now grown. We started like a few, 50 people maybe on the WhatsApp group, and now we are 500. So we came together literally to just advocate for service delivery within our area, and where it's possible to partner with government to be able to deliver some of those services. And it's been a phenomenal journey, because now a lot of the roads in Kileleshwa now have been tarmacked. Water is starting to trickle into people's taps. And we're starting to, there's a lot of, there's spaces now where the service provider can interact with the citizen through WhatsApp. And you literally send a WhatsApp message on the KIWANA water group, and Nairobi Water will respond almost immediately.
It's like magic. Do you see this as a direct result of the citizen agitation to get some of these things done that you now see, because people are coming and coalescing and saying this cannot continue like this, that then there's action because of that?
So what I always say is there's 3 steps. So there's knowledge. First, you have to know. Then you have to have first you have to have a platform where you know where are you getting the information from. The second thing after you know is that you have to know first, okay, what is the problem, but then also what is the solution and how do you get towards the solution. And then the third is action. Once you know that, and then you have the agency, you have the action. And I think that was the journey we took, and that's where the coming together was the first thing. The second thing was, okay, how do we engage as a community? Then the third step was, how do we engage with government? And then the final step was like, okay, now we are actually reaching out to government to actually do the engagement and to push and to advocate. So it's not been like, like a one-off, like you know it and then you do it. And that's some of the challenges we face in active citizenship. Sometimes people don't have the knowledge. Sometimes people just don't have the agency or the know-how of how to get what they need for their area. And I feel that that's what we've been able to achieve.
Do you think those are the most crippling things? And I ask that question because oftentimes you say, well, I'm not strong enough. I don't have a voice. I can't be the one to, and I don't have money. But you're saying actually it's because you don't have the information. You don't have the power that comes with a group of people. Ndu and 10 other people should come together. If Ndu's feeling she cannot do it on her own, you're saying the most crippling thing is the knowledge. And then after that, what do we do? It's not money. It's not...
And also time. Community organizing takes time. Like you need to just dedicate. I remember initially when we used to do public participation, we would show up at public participation and you'd be 5 people. And then you go to the one at county, you're like just 2 people.
The only one.
Like you have Madare, like with like loads of people who've come in. Guys from Kibra have mobilized, they've come in. Kaungware, they're in. You look at Kilimani and Kileleshwa, 2 people. Sometimes none. Yep. So with middle class, we also have to just make the time for it. You just have to make the time to take the action. And sometimes that's just the problem also, because people make excuses and they're like, there's no time where I'm busy, I'm working, how do I take leave to do this? But I feel, I'll tell you the story of how I got involved. I got involved because the road in front of my house was just bad.
You did not have a road in front of your house.
I did not have a road in front
you had
of
a
my
cattle
house.
truck in front of your house.
And it was so irritating for me because I was working in an NGO and we were giving money for public participation. And it's like you want people to go influence, but you can't even influence the road in front of your house. You can't influence the flat that is rising and blocking the sun from entering your room. So we have to first come together, get the knowledge, but make the time to engage. And that's where the action is. So it's not really about money.
Take us through that journey, actually. You've just started very well. So, you get this frustration. Every time you're going home, when you're directing people to your home, you direct them up to the nearest Barabara Lami, and then you give them a direction, either that Coca-Cola kiosk or the mound of rubbish or the fallen lamppost or that Karaf road. So yours was the Karaf road. Take the turn into the Karaf road, and then, by the way, make sure that you come in a high vehicle because the low vehicles are low vehicle.
We'll get stuck.
So that's how you describe.
Yes.
So how did you convert this frustration into action?
So first, when there was the meeting that was held, I just attended. I was like, okay, first let me just attend. Let me go see what people are saying. Let me hear what people are saying. The second step that I took was that when meetings were called, when the WhatsApp group was formed, and then we're like, okay, let's meet and see what we want to do. Let me tell you, Eric and Undu, you just show up. That's the trick. You just show up.
Number one thing
just
is...
show up. You show up. You don't know, you don't understand, you don't know anyone, you show up. When you see that, when people are saying, okay, the people for Kileleshwa, let's come together and let's form something, just go and stand there. Even if you don't have to speak, you just stand there, make sure your name is in there. And it's so funny, we had meetings for like 2 years before we even decided to register the association. And at the time when we decided to register the association, we were still meeting like 10, 15 people. And we would just be like, okay, what are we talking about today? Okay, what do we need to do? We ask for a volunteer on the WhatsApp group. Who's a lawyer who can help us to register? Who's this person? Who's an auditor who can do? So that's how it just started. And it was like, okay, who can draft a constitution? I was like, okay, let me try and draft the constitution. So you draft the constitution and you just kind of progress like that. And what I found is that when you start, there's a snowball effect. People just start joining. People just start telling their friends. People start saying, okay, I'm frustrated with this. Then someone says, no, there's actually an association. Able join. And then the other thing is you have to show that you're actually doing something. We were writing letters. When people would complain on the group, would direct them to the right person. We got the OCS in the group. We got all the service providers on the group. We got KPLC to come and help people to understand their meter readings. We got Nairobi Water. So you just kind of bring the information to the people. And then it's a snowball effect.
That takes time.
It does.
And it's like you're basically getting another job on the side.
Yeah.
How much time did you have to dedicate into this?
So it's interesting because there's one amazing man and he's so passionate about the village model. He's called Samwaura. And Samwaura dedicated his time. Like you need time. You need someone who's mobilizing for you. And he dedicated time and he mobilized people. And he would come and he'd say, are you going to mobilize your street? And I'd say yes. I would go door to door asking guys for numbers. Who's the number? What's the number of your chairman? Okay. Then you start a WhatsApp group. Then you tell your neighbor down the road, you're like, hey, you guys, why don't you start a WhatsApp group for your group? Then we now just kind of started mobilizing door to door. And he and I went door to door. I went in my streets. He went asking people to set up in their streets. And we just that's how we mobilized. And now this is the 6th year. And I can say at least all the streets in Kileleshwa ward are represented in one way or another on our platform. Is
it only residents or is it also homeowners?
So homeowners, residents, landlords, some people who work in Kileleshwa because now, Kileleshwa is a mixed-use space. So you have buildings like on Raptor Road. So people who work there, people who own businesses there. So that's how we view community. We view community as the businesses, the embassies, the restaurants, the petrol stations, So that's because we can't now ignore the type of community that Kileleshwa is now.
How does it connect now? You've told us about the service providers who are also in this. Now let's look at the government. Ward admin is the lowest level of the county government and there should be a ward administrator for Kileleshwa ward, right? So are they in the group? do
Yes.
they engage?
Yes.
The ward rep, that is the MCA for Kileleshwa, and then the other structures of the county government. For example, is the governor aware of this group? Does he regularly engage with the group?
Okay, so the ward admin is in the group. So the ward admin, the chief, the sub county admin is there. The MCA is there. I can say, if you're organizing in an urban area, the three most important, okay, let me say 4, is chief. Your chief is very, very important.
People always assume the chief.
Oh my goodness, the chief is such an important person, especially in the Kijiji. Like, the chief is a key decision maker. So we can't ignore the chief. So the ward admin is also very important, and they do engage, and they are very close to where we are. And they like, on our street we organized a street cleanup. The ward admin was so instrumental, because if you want to get the garbage taken away, it's the ward admin who'll organize that for you.
Right.
The sub-county admin is very, very important, because they're the ones who are basically the authority in that particular area. The MCA. And the MCA is so important, they determine the development that happens in your area. So we're very lucky. For a long time, we had quite an inactive MCA, but now we have a very active MCA, and he's always responding. He's always he's always engaging people on the group. He's engaged with the primary school, and because of that, I think we've now seen such a difference in how the confidence the residents have now in engaging in a bigger way, and that's why now we are looking to have the festival. I think it's just also because we have an enabling environment for that to happen, and we have the support of the county. So the governor launched the Kileleshwa festival on the 6th of July, and he was there, and he understands the issues because he's been a resident of Kileleshwa. So, and he's looking at how residents, especially middle class areas, can then engage more effectively with government to influence the services in their areas.
KIWANA is organizing a festival, and she'll tell us also about it, which is and why it's important to bring together these residents of Kileleshwa ward to bring out their issues, to see how they can get their issues addressed. This is all about civic engagement and people being able to utilize and understanding their power as the people, and saying, so this is what we deserve and this is how we shall get it. We can only get it if we communicate with the people who are supposed to give it to us. So each other. So it's easier to mobilize. You either go to the same church, all of you, it's a nearby church, and then you splinter. That certain group goes into another church which is still in the same neighborhood. You do things together communally. Urban areas is a whole different kettle of fish, and you just came in, you moved into this neighborhood, you don't know your neighbor, you don't know who they are, the other guy is left, you just don't know one another. And 2, you are all diverse, coming from diverse backgrounds with diverse thoughts, and you've never had a moment to share ideas. And because Kenya is going to be more urban in the next few years, we have to start thinking about how to mobilize and organize ourselves from those urban areas. Whenever politicians think about urban areas in Nairobi, they say, kura ziko kwa watu. They say, kura ziko kwa watu. You go to the vijiji, you forget about these people. The ones who will come and vote will come and vote. Forget about them. And that's why even when they're focusing on service delivery, they'll engage more on that side. They'll not engage more on this other side. You guys can sort yourselves out. If it's about schools, you didn't even mention among the areas of concern, schools in maybe Kileleshwa, or hospitals and access to hospital and health facilities in Kileleshwa, right? It's expected that you will sort yourselves out. Mukona pesa anyway. Let me think of the others now. The challenge of organizing such a thing, like you've told us, is first of all getting people to commit time. But if you start, then people start committing time. As you grow, then the group dynamics still start coming in. What challenges do you face with now dealing with people, diverse backgrounds, diverse ideas? There are those who have political ideas that are completely contrary to what others have, and they start fighting politics inside the group. How do you manage that? What are the challenges and how do you manage them?
So you've just described it completely, and that's exactly what we've faced, and I think we continue to face, and it won't change, because that's the reality of urban areas. And you'll realize that urban areas are also different. So you'll see your Runda has a different dynamic than if you're in your Langata or your Madaraka, so or your Westlands, for instance. So I'll talk about the dynamic in Kileleshwa, because you have your middle class Kileleshwa.
Yeah.
But you also have your informal settlement. And I always say that the informal settlement to Waruko is a bit different from your typical informal settlement, because it has people who are predominantly working. They have a job. It's maybe they're just low income, right? So, and it's been, we've been very deliberate to ensure that we're looking at Kileleshwa ward and not only serving the interests of the middle class, because sometimes they can be more pushy and vocal, but also ensuring that the people in Waruko feel that they are part of KIWANA and that their interests are also served within KIWANA. And so what has happened is, I think most different people have their different interests, but initially in the group, we just said that the group is purely to discuss service delivery. And it was so strict that if you talked about anything else, if you posted about politics, it would be deleted by the admin, or if you continued to do that, you'd be kicked out of the group. And it was really strict, and there's many people who are kicked out, and there's many issues around that. So that was initially, so that you can ensure that the group focuses on service delivery, on issues first. So that and then what we did is, there were splinter groups where if you want to do business, there's a Kileleshwa or a KIWANA business group. If you want to discuss politics, there's a politics group. If you're religious and you want to post religious messages, there's a religious group. So we started doing that so that we can also have people have their outlets.
Right.
But interestingly, recently, there were issues that were coming up that are not purely service delivery, but they have an impact on service delivery. And people felt that, first, one side of it felt that, okay, we need to keep the group service delivery, but one side said is that because there's so many messages coming in, you're unable, or the duty bearer is unable to track those because it's being flooded, or it's being lost in the messaging. So now what happened is, now we created service delivery groups, and now there, if you go to the water group, it's purely discussions on water. Electricity,
and Nairobi water
is there. Exactly. If you have issues with that concern the chief, there's a group that caters for the chief and all that. Then we have a general group, because there was the feeling that there needs to still be a space where people can speak about issues affecting Kileleshwa, even if they are not service delivery, because now you have service delivery groups. But that has evolved over time, and there needed to be some order first, and people to just kind of be shepherded around service delivery only, before then people understand that, and then now people can now widen up to other discussions, and that has been helpful for Kileleshwa. And of course, like for instance, Waruko has a different dynamic. They have their own WhatsApp group that deal with their own issues, but KIWANA as an association services everyone. So if you need support with your area, then KIWANA steps in to support you with the duty bearers, the letters and all that.
Okay. You've talked about, obviously, there's a group, and these are private individuals, private citizens who've come together to form this group. There's government belonging, there's government intervention. With a lot of these things, maintenance is huge. Does the government step in? Does government step in at whatever level? Ward level with the ward representative, county level with the governor, and then even moving higher than that, step in to say, we see that this can actually be done, we can maintain. Do they maintain, or does it remain up to the group to say, well, okay, we've got a pothole here, we've got this here, let's continue to fix? My fear is that then, and I mean, as you answer that question, a fear that I have is that government then will almost automatically relinquish its responsibility of some of these things to organize groups in this manner.
So I don't think that should be a fear, because the way we engage, for instance, in terms of service delivery, is that you have your service providers. I would say like Nairobi Water is a company.
Yes.
So they are service providers, duty bearers, but they're not government per se.
Okay.
KPLC as well.
Okay.
But then you have your government services, right? And what we've done is, and I always say, like, the most important thing is you need to participate in your county integrated development plan. Like, that is where the plan for your area will be set out, and that's what the government will follow. Right, so what you need to be ensuring is that the issues that you find important are in your county.
Get into the plan.
They get into the plan.
Right.
Once they're in the plan, what you need to be doing is need to be participating in your annual development plan, because that's when you prioritize, and that's how you push for money to go into the issues that you want. And I remember when we started with KIWANA, like the roads, we were just consistently attending the ADP and ensuring that there's budgets allocated to that.
So it's not just form the group and then sit back and sit pretty. Even when
And vent in the group.
Yes, and then vent.
You'll always have those people. By the way, you'll always have the people who vent,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
It's
how
important.
it's important
How do you now move the vent into
action? How do you transition that into action? And you'll be surprised, there's people who still don't know, middle class, who still don't know what the CIDP is, what the ADP is,
Where is the
when the
county?
budget cycle is, where the ward admin sits, who is our, they don't know who the MCA is, and so the thing is,
we
first,
do not have civic education in this country, so you can excuse anybody who doesn't know.
but people in the rural areas know. Which person in your, like, if your grandmother or your mother lives in the rural areas, they know their MCA. But in the urban areas, we don't. Why? Because many of us go vote up country anyway, right?
You want people to know their MCA and they don't know the name of your neighbor.
People vote in the urban areas, but you're voting for the president because that's who matters to you.
And the governor,
and the
of course,
governor.
yeah.
Now, this other guy who's just looking at the party,
Yeah.
or a name that looks familiar,
Or a face that.
or a face that just looks like
you may have
this
seen
one
at
is
the-
appealing. This is appealing and you just tick, and that's where the problem is.
Yeah.
Because, like you're saying, the things that affect you in your neighborhood, they are the MCA issues, right? And if you do not think about who your MCA is, and if you do not participate and engage at that level, at ward level, then that road will never be fixed. William Ruto can be president for life unless he moves to Kileleshwa and to your neighborhood, and then he gets the road sorted because he's enjoying it. You will not get sorted. You've got to understand, right? So doing that thing, CIDP, ADP, and then coming together. But over time, people in KIWANA engaging more on this, in these steps and stages of budget?
So I'd say yes and no. So we are still far from where, like, you have critical mass that's engaging. But now, anytime there's public participation, I am sure there's a KIWANA representative there.
Right.
And that's different from how it was before. Before, we would be like two people. And me, I'd take time off to go. Like, I'd take leave to go just because I want to ensure that the road in front of my house is tarmacked, is in there, right? But even as I'm going to mobilize for my road, because I can't mobilize for one small road in Kileleshwa, we would always ask on the group, okay, which roads have issues? And we'd just do like a quick list. And then when you go there and you're making your presentation and you do your memorandum, raka, you put all your roads and then you go present, right? That was how it was. But now, as in, there's a structure where, like, you're assured there'll be representation, and then when there'll be a formal call for appeals, and that has happened for even street lighting, right. And people will share their roads, their lighting, their needs, and then they're put in a structured way, and then they're shared. And then now, because there's now certain critical mass, you'll find that now some of the service providers and some of the government institutions are recognizing us more, and they want us to participate more in certain issues. They're saying, okay, why don't you mobilize your community, because we want to talk to them about something. That happened recently with I think Kenha, with the road agency, and they were coming. It was Kura.
Must have been Kura.
It was Kura, exactly. So, and they were actually saying that there's a big issue. That it was Kura and also KPLC. They're saying there's an issue with the materials for the electric poles being stolen, and how can the community then come in to support with enforcement? Right. So there's a way in which citizen can partner with government in a way that we hold government to account, but then also the government government feel that they can work with us towards ensuring that some of their assets are also secured. Right. So it's a partnership. And there'll never be a time when KIWANA will ever have, let me tell you, people think residents associations are very rich. Residents associations are so poor. People will pay 500 bob and they'll want the road tarmacked. I'm like,
Yes.
We give these people money every month.
500 shillings a pop. I mean,
What are they doing with our money?
and they want us to open the budgets. And
so then I must ask, look, there are folks who are obviously where they are today and citizen participation. For me, I said, look, this has to be a time where we're looking at citizen governance. There has to be participation in terms of leadership. Citizens have to be at the point whereby, you start to take the mantle. It will do one of two things. It will either make those in positions of leadership sit up and take notice and do their job, or it will get them to feel maybe an element of fear that in as much as you're sitting there, you can be removed, right? But then there are those in communities who are looking back and saying, oh, wow, when will we ever get to the point whereby the people who live in this community are contributing towards making sure that the things that ought to be done are done and don't know where to start? You talked about just attend the first meeting, start even, or be the one to call the first meeting. Because we often in this room ask the question, okay, so we say there must be active participation. How do you start? Where do you start from? What are you really supposed to do? Walk to the ward rep's office every day and knock on the door and say, excuse me, Sama, this has not... Where do you begin?
So it's so interesting. I'll just give you an analogy, and this happened really recently. There's someone on the group who was agitating for a bridge in Wairu to be fixed, and he'd been talking about it in the group, and he was getting very frustrated, and he wrote a letter then to Kura around the issue. I remember, I realized his frustration, and I reached out to him and I told him, you know what, this is how you go about it. If you want, and he said, I've reached the end, I need KIWANA to support. And I reached out and I told him, this is the steps that you need to take. One of the things is also just get signatures for businesses around the area, so that KIWANA can support you to write a letter. Yeah. So the thing is, first, there's the personal agency. I always say you have agency as a person, but then there's agency as a group and as a community, right? And when you have, I always say critical mass, because community can also be 5-10 people, but you need a critical mass where when you write a letter, that when Kenha looks at the letter or Kura or the county government or the Department of Planning looks at that letter, they know that there's X number of people behind that letter, right? And that's really powerful. Yeah. So and once they recognize that, then they will sit up and listen. And I always reflect on this, and I say, you see, the challenge with sometimes the elected leaders, they forget the power that the citizens actually have. That if you actually do your job and you do it well, why wouldn't you be re-elected? People want good leaders. People genuinely want good leaders. It's in your best interest to just be a good leader and to deliver on services for your citizenry. So I think it's very cyclical, and it's quid pro quo. So it works for government, and it works for the citizen if there's an active citizenry. So going back to your question, if you want to participate, I say the first thing is, if you're in Kileleshwa, please, anyone know you in Kileleshwa, just show up. Now we're having a festival on the 19th of August. Just show up. We're going to have a booth for KIWANA. Just show up. You come. Just say, you know what? I'm a resident. I don't know how to engage. I have this issue. How can I get help? Right? We have our telephone numbers. We have our email addresses. You can reach out and you can even ask, how can I get in touch with KIWANA? There's the WhatsApp groups. So we've not been visible externally, but if you're a resident of Kileleshwa, I am sure 2 times removed, you will be able to reach us, right? And I think it's important that people know that. And if you ask around, I always say, if you have that pain point and you ask around, after you ask 2-3 people, you will get to where you need to. You'll be directed. You'll be directed to the right place. Yeah.
You talked about a festival.
Yeah.
What's this festival about?
So the festival is a place for community, and I always say, going back to the issue of urban spaces, you find that most people in the rural areas, they have things that they come around. And they have events that they'll come around. Maybe it's your church event, or maybe it's a fundraiser, or I know I come from a tea growing area, or it's, you've been called for a meeting, an AGM by the factory, your tea factory. So there's always something that gathers you around. The problem with urban spaces is those things are not there. So it's like you go for events based on your own personal interests. And as Kileleshwa, we felt that we needed to restore the spirit of community. And it's so funny because if you grew up in old Nairobi, they used to be there. Like if you grew up in Buru, Langata, like there were always things happening that brought people together. And we want to reignite that spirit.
And Nairobi
of community.
had social halls for this specific purpose.
Exactly. And I always say, and that's why some of this isolation, where you can be living in an apartment and you don't know your neighbor, right? Because what is there to bring you together? And that's what Kile Fest is for. Kile Fest is literally for people to come together, people of different economic backgrounds, people of different diverse interests, people from all the different parts of Kileleshwa, but we're also open to people who are friends of Kileleshwa, work in Kileleshwa, to just come so that we can have a recreational outlet, let me say. And I say right now it's even more critical because I think people are depressed by the state of the economy.
People need to vent. People need an outlet.
People need an outlet. People need recreational outlets. Exactly. And I think that's really critical. And I always say, even in our African societies, we had that. So we need to reignite those spaces. And that's why I think the governor has been trying to put together Nairobi Festival, and he's encouraging residents associations to also have festivals.
Neighbourhood festivals.
Yes, because we need those creative outlets, and we need spaces where communities can come together and have a good time, yes, but get to know each other. The other important point is that because we always mobilize on WhatsApp group, most people when they talk on WhatsApp group, they talk differently than when they talk in person. And that's why people can write all manner of things, right?
Yes.
So you need physical spaces where people can meet face to face and say all those things that they were saying on WhatsApp, if they have the guts to. So, but we want that now, like we move our engagement from, not move, but we also have a physical space, a physical fun light space that people can come to engage first, to get to know how Kileleshwa, their environment, get children to be involved in those spaces around issues of pushing conversations on conservation, on mental health, and just bring the community together.
Where is it?
It's going to be on the 19th of August at St. Mary's. So St. Mary's is part of Kileleshwa Ward. So St. Mary's School, we're going to be in the field, and we have lots of fun activities. We're having an amazing race type scavenger hunt with an amazing group called the Maze Sakasiri. You can check them out on Instagram. We're going to be having a costume run.
Amazing race across the entire of
Kileleshwa Ward, yes, on streets, and you have to go looking for clues.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, so we are excited about that. We're excited also about the costume run, family costume run. We are working with Team Jasho, so that and for those who are medal hunters, this is an amazing. You're going to get a Kile Fest medal. We have football tournaments. We want to have 7-a-side on the day, and we are excited because we are hoping to have Lewanyika as our headliner, playing for us music and enjoying the day.
You know Lewanyika?
And we have a children's village that we are hoping.
Oh, okay.
They are a vibe. Kabisa.
So all this people gather at St. Mary's.
At St. Mary's, yes.
And it's only for that day, the 19th
for that
of
day,
August.
And this is the first of many Kile Fests that we're going to have.
Okay,
every
so
year.
There's all the activities. Is there going to be one place where, at one time, where you address the people?
So...
and people can say, ile maji yetu, ile barabara yetu, and such kind of things.
So we're hoping to provide a space where we can have our duty bearers to speak, and we're trying to get some of the duty bearers to also have stands in the space. And we are hoping to also share the vision for Kileleshwa that perhaps the MCA has, and we're hoping that he can come and address the people. We are hoping the governor can attend on the day and speak to the people, and we're going to have a KIWANA stand so people can come and just share some of the frustrations and some of the challenges they're facing, and we can dialogue as to how to get the solutions. We're hoping Nairobi Water can come, and if you have any water issues, KPLC can also be there. We're hoping that the police can be there as well, and so we create spaces where you can be able to get the information that you need and ways to action towards getting solutions to your problems. Yeah.
Beautiful. Final question.
Yes.
How is the road outside your home today?
It was tarmacked. It was tarmacked, and it's been tarmacked. And our road now, because I live in a cul-de-sac, and it's amazing now because we did a cleanup. We cleaned our drain. We had drainages blocked. We had trees falling on electricity lines, and we were able to just do something about it as a street. And so I feel very proud that I can see the fruits of.
So it works.
It works. It works. For sure it works.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Again, Kile Fest taking place on the 19th of August at St. Mary's. Les Wanyika will be there. Cinema Kosa. That one you know.
Yeah, that one I know.
You know Cinema Kosa. At least you know Cinema Kosa. And you know Barua Yako. Barua yako nimekwisha ipata sheri, nia yako tupendane. Twende bana 19th bana. Wairu Kinyori-Gugu is the secretary of the Kileleshwa Ward Neighbourhood Association. She's been our guest this morning, talking about the ups, the downs, the wins of urban Neighbourhood Association and the mobilization of people in urban areas.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.